So today we're going to build a little stereo device which takes advantage of the fact that its side signal, or the stereo part of the signal, cancels out, and therefore it remains completely mono-compatible. So how is this done? I have a little guitar here which doesn't sound like very much, but it's definitely not going to cause me any copyright strikes because it's standard in the Bitwig library. So what do we need to do? Well, first let's do it the traditional way. So we would duplicate this channel twice, highlight them, group them, and now we have to phase invert one of these two. Unfortunately, the Bitwig mixer does not have a phase invert button. I don't know why, but it doesn't. So we have to insert a tool and then invert the left and the right phase. Now, if you play these two, we can't hear anything because the signals are now 100% the inverse of each other, so they cancel out. But we will start hearing them when we pan them hard left and hard right. Actually, it's the maximum of a stereo signal you can have, because these two are completely, how we say, decorrelated. And it sounds a bit weird. But now, if we go to the master, I have another tool here so that I can reduce the stereo width. If now I reduce this width to 0, the signal completely vanishes. So that's already, so we're already halfway there. Now the problem is when we sum these two signals with that signal, with the original, that we have a pan that is almost like 2/3 to the right. The reason for that is that this signal is inverted and this gets added to the left channel. This signal is like the original signal, and it also gets added to the right channel. And while this signal gets subtracted, this signal gets added. I hope this makes kind of sense. So the trick which is then used to make this work is we open the editor for both of the signal. If you don't see both regions, just click on this stack here, which allows you to see as many regions as you select. Zoom in and just move it, I don't know, slightly, both signal the same amount. And now we've already solved this problem, because this signal is now a bit delayed compared to the original signal. The phases do not exactly cancel anymore. It just sounds a lot wider. And usually you just want to bring a little bit of this effect, not too much, just to make it a little bit thicker, a little bit broader, and it sounds a little bit like a chorus, but it isn't. It's actually totally its own thing. And yeah, again, when I go back to the master, reduce the width, I'm just left with the original signal. So the widening effect is there for everybody who has a stereo system. For all the rest, it will just sound like this. So, but this is the traditional way. In Bitwig, we have simpler ways to do this, so we don't have to copy these tracks, pan and invert and whatnot. So let's do this. I found the simplest way is to use a grid. It's also possible without the grid, but the grid is kind of, yeah, for me, the way to go. Grab it. Increase the scaling a little bit. Now we need a mixer. We need the same signal on 2 channels, and then we connect it again with the output while holding Shift, which gives us a blender. Now we need to invert one of these 2 signals, and there's no inversion module here, but we can construct one ourselves. It's quite easy. We just need a multiplier and the constant. and the constant has to be -1. I think now it also makes sense why these signal cancel, because if you multiply a signal with itself, it just gets a negative sign in front of it. And it doesn't matter how big it is, when you add it to its original, the sum will always be 0. What is still missing here is the delay. So let's add one. Drag it in here, reduce. Usually it's just a few milliseconds are enough. That's not yet working as expected. Yeah, of course, we have to pan. You have to pan them hard left and hard right. That's the whole point of it. That's already it, and we have our little stereo tool that we can now apply to all tracks we want very quickly without losing any time to see if it does something we want or not. And of course, I suggest you now map the important parameters just to a new page. Basically only these two. And now we can actually forget about the grid and just, well, after you saved it, load it, apply it to any kind of signal you want, dial in the blend, the delay, and have fun. But because we're already in the grid, let's play a little bit around with it. Let's pick up an LFO, add it to the delay. That gives it a like kind of nice detuned chorus-like sound. And still, this is completely mono compatible. The side signal will still just vanish when we switch over to mono. So I hope you find this little tutorial useful. As always, like, subscribe, and yeah, see you next time.